Good afternoon. And I welcome you to a one-of-a-kind production sponsored by the Performing Arts Ministry and the Formative Power Grant. This morning when I spoke with you about the Performing Arts Ministry and its restart, I mentioned that connections are where my mind went. I will not detail all of those, but I'm thrilled to be connected to Portia in stories that we have shared. I brought her along on the civil rights pilgrimage as much as I could, and we have a history that goes back. So I'm thrilled to be your MC very briefly today, and thrilled to have Portia with us. Today you will see, excuse me. And I would also like to acknowledge that Portia's husband, Derek, is with us, and their daughter, Shania. Today you will see, hear, and learn much of the history of a wonderful heroine in the fight for civil rights and equal rights for women. Mary McLeod Bethune was an educator, activist, and businesswoman who was given a place in the national government early in the 20th century. Bringing this history to us today is a beautiful local talent named Portia Sholar Jackson. Portia grew up in Indianapolis, attended Indianapolis public schools, including good old School 57. She has dedicated her life and talents to sharing African American history and cultural awareness with audiences in churches and schools in Indiana and around the country. Please open your eyes, ears, and hearts as Portia presents to us the story of Mary McLeod Bethune.
Good afternoon. I am excited about being here today. I want to share with you, I am a storyteller, an educator. I like to say those roots begin at School 57 with sixth grade teacher Gloria Carter. However, it does matriculate on to other mentors. However, but I do want you to know that today, my spirit is very filled with, I don't know how to explain to people, but as a storyteller, I take on the essence. And Mary McLeod Bethune is my hero and mentor. So for storytelling today, I'm going to give you a genre of different avenues. I will be doing what we call first person presentation as well as second person. I thought this through clearly, and I have about 4 different presentations of Mary McLeod Bethune that I do. And to work with what you all have been doing here at Downey Avenue has really made my, when we're dealing with racial equity, I just really see a different way, and so then the educator in me comes out, and I thought, well, I'm going to do both, and I want you to know that I will be engaging you for participation as well, and I really feel as if in my morning prayer that Mary said, "You go, girl." Just a little bit I want to share with you before I begin. Mary McLeod Bethune is the reason why I started a child development center 30 years ago. And when we opened up this Freedom House, my husband and I, with 2 aunts, when you entered into the Freedom House, this picture of Mary McLeod Bethune was posted. When I thought about Lucy Laney and Mary McLeod Bethune and the values and the morals in which she chose to focus on youth in America, you will understand why I've toiled today on making sure that I am able to give you this afternoon my best way to present and enlighten, uplift, and educate the essence of Mary McLeod Bethune. Now, Mary McLeod Bethune was born in 1875 in Maysville, South Carolina. And to understand, she came after the Civil War, but she was born of two enslaved parents, Patsy and Samuel, and she was the first of the children, 17 born to this couple, born free. Now, when we think in terms of old day, there were lots of values that happened and myths of things and different terminology. So when she was born, that July 10th, her grandmother was the midwife. And when she lifted this bundle of joy, she stated a fact that came to fruition. And she said, "This child shall see the world." And it was because of a myth that when you are born with the placenta, as they call the veil, covering and has to be peeled away, that's something special and significant. And that is why her grandmother said, "This child shall see the world." And she did. It came to fruition. Now, born to former slaves, they had a landscape of their own. They were cotton farmers, and the mom took in laundry and worked for the former plantation owner. And during her childhood, she would go up to the big house and had opportunity and privilege to go into the nursery of the children of the home. She would play about, but one particular day, after playing and admiring toys, she picked up a book. And the young lady fussed at her. "You can't read, you don't need to have that book. My mama said you don't read, you don't get books." And that struck a light for her. And from that day forward, she said to herself, once she learned to read, that the whole world opened up for her. Now, her life was dedicated to education, freedom from discrimination for all people. She was an active organizer, educator. She even opened the first school for our African American girls. A passionate educator. She was a presidential advisor. She had a long career of public service. She also became one of the earliest black female activists that helped lay the foundation for what we now know as this modern day civil rights movement. Mary was in the movement way before we knew of its challenges, from the early 1900s all until her timely death at the age of 79 in 1955. Mary worked tirelessly in instituting things that would make life fair for all people. Now, working hard she did for race relations, educational opportunities. She was able to take on reading and mathematics. She was helping people tally what their bag of cotton was worth. And they knew then, this child has something going on. And so she was able to go to the Scotia Seminary and then on to school. And all she wanted to do once she went to what is now known as the Moody Bible College Institute was be a missionary. So the first fact of racial discrimination hit her very hard, not just that she couldn't go to school with other kids, but now she has a college degree and she wants to go to Africa and be a missionary. And she is turned down because they don't want to allow African Americans to leave this country and go to Africa to do anything. She was not worthy because of the color of her skin. No one checked the character. However, that didn't stop her. So she started teaching. She was in Daytona Beach, Florida, when she started working with a group of kids. Their parents were railroad workers, migrant workers who worked and followed how they laid the tracks. And she decided that with 2 crates, 3 little girls, she would start a school. Well, before you knew it, she had 7, and then 11. And then there were 20 young people willing to come and learn. She decided that she would start a school, the Daytona Normal School for Girls. She didn't have anything. She was basically penniless. But what she had was a sweet potato pie recipe. And with that sweet potato pie recipe, take note, 2 eggs, 4 medium-sized potatoes, 1 cup of sugar, tidbit of vanilla, a little pinch of cinnamon, and a little bit of nutmeg, all rolled in together. Now, how you make your crust is on your own. But let me tell you, these sweet potato pies helped her launch what is now known as Bethune-Cookman College in Daytona Beach, Florida. It wasn't easy. Folks were just taken back to think that this woman had the nerve to want to service these colored children. But that didn't stop Mary McLeod Bethune. She started talking to people, and once they understood about her character, her dignity, her respect for herself, and her faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, Procter & Gamble gave her a little bit of money. The singer and the white sewing machine families gave her money, and she was able to erect her very first building on campus, and right above the door she named it Faith. One evening, about 35 girls are in school. It's kind of like a boarding where they are housed and taught there and nurtured. A group of men came. They had torches. For some reason, it wasn't Halloween, but they wore masks, white coverings. They were angry. They were not going to have this feisty woman do anything to elevate the colored people. And so they stood outside and they protested that they would burn it down. Mary grabbed all of the children and put them behind her. And they stood at that door, and she hushed them whispers and those whimpers, and she told them, "Hush up now." And she started singing. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See those cheering dressed in white, must be the ones of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. As they sang, sing with me. Wade in the water, children. Wade. You keep singing. As they sang, the children whimped and sang, and Mary prayed. Wade. 30 minutes went by, and those mean old men wouldn't leave. I say, leave us alone. We have rights. We are human. nothing shall falter. Thank you. You know what happened. Mary's professing her faith in God and what God won't do to his children. They got frustrated and went away. And before you knew it, they never bothered her again. She was beginning to gain a reputation. Ooh, Miss Mary, I tell you. She said one day, next to God, we are indebted to women. First, for life itself, and then for a life worth living. She thought to herself, God made woman. And there are some things that we should not have to endure based on the significance and the importances of our being to reproduce and create man. And so she worked hard during the suffrage movement. Ooh, let me tell you, the 19th Amendment. Bethune continued her efforts to gain access for blacks. Even after the 19th Amendment was passed, she held voter registrations. She did tutoring so that they could pass and even pay their poll tax. And before you know it, she was leading what we call mass registration drives. She said the true worth of a race is the character of its womanhood. And so she worked tirelessly to engage and making sure that life moves smoothly and simply for our young people and for all people. She was invited to attend a conference in 1928. It was a child welfare conference. Republican President Calvin Coolidge. And then in 1930, Hoover, president, at the White House called on her to lead a conference on child health. Now, by 1935, she was appointed to the National Youth Administration, and she helped Americans, both black and white, in youth find work during the Depression. Now, Roosevelt, his wife, oh my goodness, she became very good friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, and they were working tirelessly together. So through this relationship with Miss Eleanor, she had unprecedented access to the White House. And she wore a cane. I call it wearing, because she didn't need it for assistance, but she made herself look more stately and dignified with her cane. And was even blessed with one of Roosevelt's canes after his passing. But to say being a loyal friend of Miss Roosevelt's is exactly what Miss Eleanor Roosevelt stated to a group of women where they were meeting. And so what happened was they were at this meeting, and it was all about understanding, it was a Southern Conference on welfare. And Jim Crow was in effect, and the white only and the colored only signs were up. But Eleanor came in and Mary came in, and they looked white only, black only, colored only. So Eleanor threw a tit fit and made Mary sit on the white side and Eleanor sit on the colored side, and everybody had a fit, but the meeting went well and it was integrated. That was just one of the many convoluted, you might say, spectacles the two of them made. They were known for mischief because they were trying to change things. Mary became one of the first African American women to lead a federal agency, the Federal Council of Negro Affairs. Now we call it the Black Cabinet. Now people call it the Black Caucus. But understand, this woman was able to advise 5 different presidential administrations. That in itself is phenomenal. When we think about first, so she was actually what we call the first Negro woman of the struggle. And I'll explain. When it came to helping Roosevelt in his re-election, she was one of the people that worked tirelessly on his campaign. But her thoughts was, how was she going to change the world? Because we're going back to what her grandmother said. So serving as the Negro Affairs with the National Youth Administration, she was able to develop 3 other organizations. The National Council of Negro Women, which did some phenomenal things for her, with her. And one of the things that she was able to do was that we had to make a pledge as far as the National Council of Negro Women is stated. And so she says in a writing, "It is our pledge to make lasting contribution to all that is finest and best in America, to cherish and enrich heritage of freedom in the process of working for the integration for all people, regardless of race and creed and national origin. Social and cultural and civic economic life. We are to achieve this in glorious destiny of a true and unfeathered democracy. Do we love our children? And if we do, then we must make a change." Her words were powerful. She was able to, in 1938, gain approval to make sure that colored women will be able to enlist in the Women's Army Corps. She even made sure that the colored soldiers were able to be ranked the way they should be, with the merit and medals they earned and deserved. One little woman did all of this work, always thinking for the betterment of others. She was quoted for noting that not only the Negro child, but all races should be able to read and know of their achievements, accomplishments, and deeds. World peace and brotherhood are based on common understandings, and the contributions and cultures of all races should not be ignored. How will we gain world peace if we don't create a world of understanding? There can be no divided democracy, no class government, no half county, no half free county. Under the Constitution, there can be no discrimination, no segregation, no separation for some of its citizens. For the rights which belong to all should be provided. It is the Constitution. We are on our way. These are the frontiers in which we must conquer. We must gain full equality in education, in franchise, and economic opportunity, and full equality for the abundance of life. She would hold speaker sessions at the school, Bethune-Cookman, and invite everybody to come in. And even though Jim Crow law was still in effect, she would not have those signs labeling where people should and shouldn't sit. And so people came in and sat all anywhere, and they were able to have a better understanding. So when it came to healthcare disparities, Mary McLeod Bethune opened up the very first colored hospital in Daytona Beach. because there was a student who had been very sick and she could not be treated at the local hospital. So Mary developed a nursing program and then went to people who respected her, both in DC and in Philadelphia, and she was able to take $5,000 and purchase a shack and turn it into a 2-room hospital, which grew to 20 beds. And before you know it, Mary McLeod Bethune was getting accolades all over the place. In 1918, the pandemic, the flu pandemic, she was noted for being most helpful and even expanding the hospital to opening up the auditorium to help others because they were overcrowded. Not only that, she was able to open up a tuberculosis wing. She helped both black and white and saved many lives. When we think of all the things that Mary McLeod Bethune has given us, she also leaves us with a few things. One of the things she said was knowledge is the prime need of the hour. And if we are not knowledgeable, we cannot plunge into any job of creating something new and different. But it's all about the power that we use. If we have the courage and the tenacity of our forebears who stood firmly against the rock and the lash of slavery, we shall find a way to do our day like they did theirs. But without faith, nothing is possible. But with faith, nothing is impossible. We have the power to give potential to our youth. And we must have the courage to change some of these old racist ideas so that we may direct their power towards a better end. World peace and brotherhood are a common understanding. And if we give the contributions, then all races and all creeds will do so much better. So I leave you. I leave you love, and I leave you hope. I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. I leave you a thirst for education. I leave you the respect for others. I leave you faith. I leave you racial dignity. I leave you the desire to live harmoniously. I leave you, finally, the responsibility to our youth. Our children must never lose their zeal for building a better world. And I say, sometimes I sit and I'm retired, and I'm aware that some things will overtake me before the greatest of my dreams come to full equity. Yet, I face reality without fear and regrets. I am resigned to death, and I am not frightened. But since my retirement from an active role in educational work and from the affairs of the Negro Council, I have been living quietly and working at my desk from home here in Florida, now in my days of 78 years. And I think, should I work on my autobiography? Should I plan my last will and testament? Should my life's work be all that is done so others can see? And then I think, well, You leave a legacy for others. And my worldly possessions mean nothing. Yet my experiences have been rich. I believe firmly for my life's work are products of sweet and sorrow, but of building a better world. I leave you now the challenge of developing confidence in yourselves, because as long as the racial blocks of prejudice are binding us, my legacy means nothing. So that is why I leave you confidence. But I leave you hope. I leave you hope so that we can direct, or you can direct, the economic growth and political strength towards winning more abundant, secure life for our children. And I also will leave you love. I leave you love because it builds. It is more positive and helpful and beneficial than hate. We must forgive, because if you don't forgive, you can never get rid of the hurt. So yes, we have hurt for the last 100 years, but move lightly and forward in faith. That is why you must love. Love yourself, love your family, love your communities, love mankind. I leave you this in hopes that 100 years from now, the children won't know what we have fought for and struggled through, because theirs have been a brighter day. I ask you to move forward. Let your light shine. Let your light shine so those can see the good in you and spread it around. Thank you. I would love questions. I love questions. What it does is it allows us to bridge any gaps and provide more information for you about her. Of course I omitted things because not enough time, but please, are there any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
How did she learn to read?
She learned to read because she was able to, her parents were able to save enough money for her to go to a school in Sumter County where she was living. And there was a Presbyterian church was able to raise funds, scholarship, for her to go away to school after she had surpassed what they had for her to learn at the county school. A little one-room colored schoolhouse. Yes, sir. I do. My firstborn granddaughter is a junior at Bethune-Cookman College. And if I have my way and get my health under parts, I plan to be a student and finish out her last semester with her, and so that I can say I was a student of Bethune-Cookman College as well. I am so looking forward to this experience. I was not able to go to a historically black college in 1980 because my dad just did not, so I went to Indiana University. However, I have sent some of our children are products of historically black colleges, and I'm going to do a semester at Bethune-Cookman. I visited the campus. I've studied there to learn more about her in the archives there. It's a beautiful small campus. The buildings, when I go there, I just feel like I'm little Bethune walking around. It's in Daytona Beach, Florida. One of the things that I didn't share with you was that she was so fed up with the racial disparities that black people could not go to the beach but once a year. So she and some other benefactors pulled some money together and purchased 2.5 miles of beach. And it's called Paradise Beach, but it was the black beach. But they did not discriminate. When they owned Paradise Beach for blacks, anyone could come. She put a stamp on that. Enterprising. I didn't talk enough about her entrepreneurship, but she also owned the Philadelphia Courier. She wrote articles for several newspapers, including the Chicago Defender. She's just phenomenal. Any other questions, please? Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
When did you start learning about her? Was it as a child, or she wasn't appreciated that many years ago for who she was? Or?
Yes. She was appreciated that many years ago. Let me see. I first learned about Mary McLeod Bethune. More focused, I believe, at my church during Black History Month. But when I went to Tech High School, I was able to take a social English protest, and I was reading about some of the policies and things. As her being a Negro woman and an advisor to 5 presidents, I wanted to know more about her. And then when I learned a little bit more about her relationship with Eleanor Roosevelt, then I really dove in. But then when I found out that she started a school for kids with $1.50 and the sweet potato pie recipe, that intrigued me, because you can make a way out of no way. And with that, and coming from her very humble beginnings and growing to being an Libya, she received the Springard Medal. She received a proclamation from the, I'm gonna tell you, the Haitian government, the Liberian government. She traveled a lot to Europe and Africa, but not Queen Elizabeth. It was not Queen Elizabeth. Or was it Queen? She received a big award from the United Kingdom as well. But it was her public speaking and speaking out about poverty and injustice for all people, especially poor and people of color, which I gravitated to. But once I got to college, I dove in. And a lot of me centers her love for children, her love of nurturing, her love of sweet potato pie. It progressed that I was able to start. We needed a school for our kids to go to. And so in thinking that was our fundraiser at our daycare, we made sweet potato pies and sold them. My husband can make a good sweet potato pie on behalf of Mary McLeod Bethune. And so I just adopted a lot of her philosophy, and I think it guides me and it grounds me. And my daughter might not appreciate it as much, but sometimes when I'm chastising and tightening up the foundation, if you know, I think about, what would Mary think? What would she say? What would she do? What limits and boundaries would she give a kid of this day? And that grounds me, and that's why I am indebted to her service and want to spread and share her. Sometimes I get overwhelmed on what aspects of her life should I share, because I could go on and on and on and on and on, seriously. That's how how she moves me. Yes, ma'am. So, to record, Mary was the 15th of 17, the firstborn free. But a lot of her siblings were sold away during slavery. Her parents remained together, but the McLeod plantation did sell, and they were not able to reunite with several of her siblings. But history has taught us that after the war and into the 1900s, there were 4, and she was very close to them. She did marry, didn't work out. Now, I'ma say it. Some men don't have the what it takes to deal with a strong-willed, fire, brimstone going woman. And I thank you for that God gave you that gift. But Albertus Bethune did not have that. And so they're married because she was making moves and doing things, and he was just happy to just be a teacher. And because they met when she was teaching in Savannah, Georgia, and quickly into that marriage, they created one son, and he was a very important part of her life. But there is a quote where she says that she loves her work, her family, but work comes first. Albertus hung with her and has kept things going on. She does have great-grands and grands, so their family tree has continued on, even though she only had the one son. Her husband did not survive a tuberculosis, and shortly after they split, he died within a year or two. Yes, he, I don't know if she was smarter than him or just more cantankerous with her mission, and that he just, this was before the 19th Amendment. Women were supposed to be in their place, and that was never Mary, so that could have been part of it. But I hope I answered that the way you wanted, but I had to put the true spin on it too. Yes, sir.
What did you study at IU?
Education, and I minored in African American Studies. I did skip over a song I was going to have you all sing with me, and I'm just going to leave you with the importance of this so that you understand. It was 1900, and it was in Florida. There was a celebration for Abraham Lincoln, and it was an emancipation celebration with a highlight of Abraham Lincoln. And so they put together a mass choir of colored children, and W.E.B. Du Bois was a part of that planning program. But the song we now know was written and composed by two brothers. It was actually a poem at first. It was Rosamond Johnson and James Weldon Johnson. And you may be familiar with James Weldon Johnson. But the song was sang all through Florida from this mass choir that Mary McLeod Bethune had a role in this celebration. And it piggybacked off of one of her mass voting registrations. And the song was ingested into the hearts. And so all of Florida, the youth were singing it, and then they were singing it for other youth. And before you knew it, it spread across the South. In the meantime, James Weldon Johnson and his brother had went to New York There was a sculptress, a female sculptress by the name of Augusta Savage. She created a sculpture entitled Lift Every Voice and Sing with the faces of colored people on a harp, which was featured at the 1930 World's Fair, entitled Lift Every Voice, at which time Mary McLeod Bethune was an active member of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and they adopted this song. And the words are, lift every voice and sing, tell earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise, high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. The reason why I wanted to share that part was that Mary McLeod Bethune had a role in so many accomplishments and upliftments in our community, whether we're colored, Negro, Black, or African American. And to know that she weaved a web of, it was because of her voter registration that this mass choir came to be. She worked with children and put the choir together. James Roseman Johnson and his brother created the song, but because of the NAACP and her affiliation as a board member, allowed this song to become what we now know as the Negro National Anthem. I am saying that Mary McLeod Bethune's accomplishments are so noteworthy, we can't get them all in at one time. And with that said, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll close. Because Steve might be saying, girl, you way over.
If you'll turn to hymn number 631, Mana will lead us in song, and we will bring this wonderful presentation to a very appropriate closing. Portia, thank you so much.
Kleenex. Thank you so much.
You got to get the key?
I've got to get the music glasses.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm old.
Me too.
Those little notes look like little bugs.
Dave, how many verses shall we sing? We'll sing first verse. That's what you said. First verse twice.
I love it. Oh, I don't need
You're
a
good.
voice.
Okay.
Every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let us rejoice and rise high as the listening skies. Let us sing loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the grace that the Lord has brought us. Sing a song full of the has taught us. Is the rising sun of our new day begun? Let us march on till victory is won. Wonderful. Oh, thank you. That just made my day. Yes.
And thank you all for being here today.
Whew.